Trusty Sidekick Theatre Company is based in New York, and we create theater for young audiences and their families and caregivers. And sometimes that's also just the child within for adults who enjoy and checking out what we do as well. And so our pieces range, we have sort of three different target audiences that we generally make work for. There's our early years work, which is generally ages 2 to 5. There's our more experimental pieces that are for a little bit of an older age range. Oftentimes those are immersive in nature or promenade pieces. Typically 8+ is what we do for those works. And then our third category is in special populations, or more specifically, we've been making work for young people on the autism spectrum. And so using some of the ingredients from those two other buckets of our work to make something that is for a very specific target audience that has their own needs or way of moving through the world, and how we want to cater the experience to center them in that process. And so all of our works are devised and original. We aren't putting up pre-existing pieces. We generally are adults performing for kids, though we have had some intergenerational shows as well, where we've had young folks work alongside our professional performers.
How about yourself? Your role, and how did you get into all this?
Oh, sure. Thank you. So I am currently the managing director, which in the States we have a nonprofit company status, 501c3. So the business is not owned by anybody. We have a governance board. I report to that board, and we are tax exempt from the government. And so so my role is administrative in making sure that we are compliant with our filings, and that we are setting up our payroll systems. I oversee our contracting and all that stuff. But I came to this by way of having a background in stage management in theater, and also working as a youth director for shows. I should say that Trusty is a part-time passion project for all of our team. And so it's a nights and weekends space for everybody. My full-time job is at the Roundabout Theatre Company, where I work in the education department, doing arts education work. And so it's so my role, I basically essentially work with our artistic team to produce the shows, and then keep the marketing and fundraising efforts up and running. It's fun to put on, like, from the managing director hat, like, we're thinking the marketing of the show through the world of the play, as opposed to just the target demographic, which is really fun. But I came up through producing and being in rehearsal rooms and doing the work on that space.
So you've been there for 5 years, and it grew out of a vision, I guess. It grew out of a vision, and can you tell me the vision or mission, whatever?
Oh, absolutely. So yes, and I've been in this role for 5 years. I've been fortunate to be in the involved first as a stage manager, actually, for almost 9 at this point, which is great.
I sat down with my daughter a few months back, and she was 14 at the time, I think.
Wow.
And we took turns writing line by line, inventing line by line a storyline for a play. And we come up with this thing called Love Pizza. So it's about these two young people working in different pizza shops, and each pizza shop has got their secret recipe, and and there's all these tensions, and gradually these two young people start to notice one another around the streets delivering pizza and stuff. But there's this competition. Some YouTuber says the first pizza that arrives at my place from these two places is the one I'm going to review for his big famous pizza blog. There's a collision between them, and the pizza flies up in the air, and it comes down pizzas together, and the guy tastes it, and it's the best pizza he's ever tasted.
Yes.
And so we actually,
yeah, we're in the process now at Trusty Sidekick of reimagining our leadership structure, reimagining our organizational structure as well, with an eye on sustainability. So really the next challenge is to get more folks involved in a way and design a company that can live on. So we were founded in 2011. I've been in this role for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it's just time for us to, encourage the next generation of folks that have similar passions to make it their own, and see what happens from there.
That issue of what do they call it? Succession planning.
Oftentimes, the answer to how would you start in a community would be to replicate. People will go into a community and replicate that professional pipeline and say, I'm going to give you training in the vocal techniques of this studio from New York or XYZ. That it's all rooted in that like aspiration of the versus I'm going to make a thing to make a thing, and then it's going to go away and it's going to be great. And it's also in the narratives. I think the way that you just described that your piece ends with the pizzas coming up together and landing there, that the winner is working together, then that's just a very different narrative.
I didn't think that.
One over the other. What you were saying before about your collaboration with that playwright is so tricky, and that is like the artistic director's role of shepherding a team, and it feels like clarity of role or clarity of expectation in the collaboration is up to the culture of the organization that's being built, or the culture of the project that's being built. So one of the things that we do is we have a devising process, but then there is somebody that then takes all of those ideas and synthesizes them into a play, and then we come back into the room with that draft of the play, and we have clear protocols set up around how we ask each other for feedback, what we what types of feedback we're looking for at what points, because like you kind of alluded to there's ego in art making, and there's preciousness around like something that's come from somebody's mind. But then there's also sort of tunnel vision that can happen, where you're not seeing, when you're in that space, you're not necessarily seeing.
You don't have a critical other, a critical friend.
Yeah. And so we often have a lot of great collaboration between a playwright and a director in order to make that move forward in a way where that outside eye is there. And our projects that have been directed by the person that wrote it are often the ones that are a little bit more fraught in cohesion, because they're coming from a singular perspective.
That it's just not top down, is it? It's not ego driven. It's community driven. It really is, isn't it?
And it's what you said. It's what you said about, that was a model 30, 50 years ago, the auteur, I have this vision where, and I'm going to move the actors around the stage like my puppets and the pawns and right. And there's
It's a
there are
bit.
some people who still are wanting that.
Oh yeah,
What'd you say?
yeah, exactly. I'm just agreeing. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just.
right. Yeah, that there are those people who still might, want to be in that space. And I think for certainly folks who work in social settings or community building or wanting, in the States right now, there's a lot of movement around, wanting to make art making and the arts a much more inclusive place than it's been, that we're not just celebrating ableism and celebrating, the single artist with capital A sort of space, but really making the arts a space for all creativity to be in. That, like,
Mm,
it just changes sort of the mirror that's being held up a little bit.
it does, doesn't it?